Hey, it's Styles from Brand Content Studios. Here is your Content Marketing Quickie for the week of November 5th, 2019. You've probably heard by now that podcasts are working really, really well for advertisers and brands. But why? I mean, after all, many brands are still out there keeping podcasting at arm's length, not doing it, not advertising in it. What do they know that everyone else is getting so wrong? Well, the answer is nothing. They're just sleepwalking past the opportunity. But for others, Edison Research and Podcast One data shows that when you advertise in podcasts, your brand's favorability goes up for those who listen 5 or more hours a week. Think about all we do, how hard we kill ourselves to get brand awareness and brand affinity. Well, here it is, right there for the taking. 60% of these, what are called super listeners, no actual superpowers beyond being able to work a podcast app, appreciate advertisers for supporting their favorite podcasts. You heard that right. They're actually glad you're there. 44% say their opinion of your brand is more positive if they hear you mentioned in a podcast that they regularly listen to. Want to sell something? Okay. 70% considered buying a new product or service because they heard a sponsorship or ad on one of their favorite shows. And all things being equal, price, quality, the brand that's present on the podcast that they listen to will get the purchase. Now, later in this episode of the Quickie, we're going to hear about an article in the New York Times about how the public en masse despises ads and wants nothing to do with them. But only 24% say there are too many ads in podcasts. Compare that to 62% who say that about TV, 47% about radio, and 45% for streaming audio. Now it's podcasting's job to hold the line and make sure that despite rising advertiser demand, the number of ads in podcasts is held to about where it is now to retain the high value for brands that it has now. Make ad slots hard to get and raise the price. Do not turn podcasting into radio. As marketers, all we want in life is to get people to do what we want them to do. The elusive call to action. We bomb them with pixels and pixels of information. We bury them in product features and differentiators and the experience of our executive team. We give them cool graphics and statistics. We thump our own chests so hard we have bruises to prove it. But why won't these stupid target audience people do what we ask them to do after we've done all that? Well, because you forgot or never did care that they're human beings. You marketed to them with cold details and logic as if they were bots. And that's just not how we work. Let me introduce you to my little friend, dopamine. It lives in me and you, and there's very little that you've done or will do that dopamine didn't play at least some role in encouraging you to do it. You wanted Taco Bell last night? You think that dress will make you look much prettier, even if you're a dude? You went back to school to get another degree? In every instance, you pursued a goal, and you pursued it because the neurotransmitter dopamine pushed you to do something about it. Jade Bunkie is a marketing scientist who understands buyer behavior and things like cognitive neuroscience and social psychology. He writes in Marketing Land that dopamine is the gas that runs your audience's reward circuitry. Reward circuitry is what make mice go through all those mazes we love to put them in. Now, sure, the brain gives you a shot of dopamine when you get the reward, but the biggest hit of it actually comes from the anticipation of the reward. You felt best when you were anticipating the Taco Bell, not when you ate it all in the space of 14 seconds. And Berkeley's Haas School of Business says it's not just money or food. Information actually triggers the dopamine-producing system. For instance, Jade says in email marketing, you think the awesome HTML you worked up or the brilliant subject line you A/B tested to death is going to matter most to the recipient. Nope. You know what the main thing is that determines the success of your email? Who it comes from. You. If your recipients associate the sender with quality, valuable information, you're more than halfway home. If you've done nothing but deliver emails that are immediately skippable, nothing else you do will matter because you've tainted your name. They don't anticipate your stuff with any excitement or interest. So now, knowing what you know about dopamine, what's an awesome tactic that you can use to get people chemically addicted to your content? It will change how you do your job. And I'll tell it to you after a couple of other really interesting stories. If you've been in the ad business a while, you might just be reeling at how different things are now than when you first started. Hell, if you started last year, you're probably reeling at how much everything is changing. Tiffany Zhu writes about it in the New York Times, pointing out that not only is the ad industry ecosystem being forced to change, this is all happening at a time when consumers, especially young affluent consumers, hate ads so much they're happy to pay money to avoid them. That's in addition to the amazing evolutionary skill of ad blindness that we've adopted. A Forrester report says the ad industry faces an existential need for change, and agencies better start disassembling their outmoded models. The report's author, Jay Patisal, says, "We're no longer creating ad campaigns 3 or 4 times a year and running them across a few networks and print. It's harder to reach audiences. The cost of marketing is going up. The number of channels and the cost to cover those channels has proliferated. And oh yeah, brands are demanding more and faster and paying less. And oh yeah, again, the public is resisting." Joanna Coles used to be chief content officer at Hearst Magazines and says, "People hate advertising, and it's all advertisers' fault." P&G's chief brand officer, Mark Pritchard, agrees, saying ads are irrelevant and sometimes just silly, ridiculous, or stupid. Meanwhile, a Group M report says services like Netflix are actually stoking the appetites for ad-free entertainment. It concludes, with shifts in viewing habits, commercial impressions in the most viewable, highest attention media are in free fall. Things aren't going to get better. But wait, there's even more to make big ad agency people physically ill. Forrester says ad technology will transform 80% of agency jobs by 2030. For instance, this summer, JP Morgan Chase hired Persado to use AI to write marketing copy. Let that sink in. Advertising giants are also facing competition from consulting companies, like mine. Sorry. They're getting squeezed by independent agencies. And they're getting squeezed by the trend of taking ad creative work in-house. Bad an idea as that is, 78% of members of the Association of National Advertisers last year had an in-house agency. That's up from 42% in 2008. Everything's changing. Stay nimble and creative, my friends. Lastly, and quickly, here's the tactic I promised that will help you use the effect dopamine has on people to get them to take the action you want them to take. Now, too many brands still think in terms of one-off content assets. There's no anticipation element to that. And no, you aren't building anticipation by promoting it on Twitter. Instead, think in terms of delivering content over multiple sequential assets in a narrative. Storytelling. With each asset delivering a certain level of value or reward, and each asset ending in a small cliffhanger that builds anticipation for what's to come. Not unlike what I did by making you wait to get this tactic. See, I really do practice what I preach. That's the Content Marketing Quickie for this week. If you have found it to be fun and borderline educational, please subscribe and even confess to people you've discovered this podcast. We'll have more next week.